Hey everybody, I'm Blitz5, and unfortunately we got some bad news from PUBG this week, and I wanted to record a video about this. I waited until the weekend. Today is Saturday, February 25th, 2023, and unfortunately I'm still a little under the weather, so I apologize for that, but I wanted to share my opinions and also let people who may not follow PUBG on social media or on Twitter know some of the things that are going on, because really it seems like that is the number one place for PUBG news and really where to get all the information through PUBG. And the unfortunate news is that many of the staff that work on the PUBG community team were let go this week. And we found out via their Twitters, different members of the community team announced on Twitter to their followers that this would be their last week at PUBG. And you might recognize some of these names if you've been following PUBG for a while, either on social media or on Reddit. And this includes a friend of mine, PUBG Andy, Steve the Happy Whale, McClutch, I think a few other members had tweeted out that they are leaving, and then also another member, Joey D, who previously did some social community stuff for PUBG, but is more known for doing content for PUBG. They had their own Twitch channel. Joey and someone stink at PUBG or suck at PUBG, and he also did TikTok stuff, someone that I became friends with over the years. And this is on top of some other people leaving PUBG over the past 2 years, but this seems like a separate incident because of the current global economic crisis. One of the members from PUBG actually mentioned that's why they got laid off was for that reasoning. And obviously this kind of caused a frenzy online for multiple different reasons. But before we get into this, I share my opinion, talk about the micro level of this and also the macro level of this with the video game industry, what it means for PUBG. Kind of just want to have a moment for these guys and people affected, because it's just unfortunate that they lost their jobs, individually. So I definitely feel for all of them, especially Andy. Andy's someone that I became friends with even outside of PUBG. We've known each other for years now, even before I was partnered with PUBG. I've worked with him on many events throughout the years. He was one of the people that, I worked with fairly often because he was one of the community managers for PUBG Console. Andy might, eventually listen to this video. So I feel for you, buddy. So sorry to hear the news. Obviously, these people will move on, and they're great people, hard workers, especially Andy. They'll find great positions elsewhere. But obviously it's devastating to lose your job no matter what you're doing. Anybody can relate, if you lose your job suddenly like this, especially during an economic downturn, it stinks, and it's not easy finding another job when you're not really ready to, right? So I just want to take a moment to appreciate that and also kind of mourn with them a little bit of that, but they'll pick themselves up and continue on. But definitely just an unfortunate situation right now. That's sort of all we know, is that part of the community team was let go. After that happened, some people pointed to an article that was from this website called Esports.net, where this article had pointed to, I'll pull it up a little bit bigger here, that PUBG creator Krafton reportedly in crisis, salary freezes, reduced working from home. So apparently there had been a leak from, I think, an internal meeting that was saying that, this stuff was sort of coming, that they were tightening their belt here and there and pointing to a bunch of different reasons: the economic recession, revenue declining, Callisto Protocol struggling. Apparently Callisto Protocol was expected to sell 5 million copies and only had sold 2 million copies at the point of them writing this article, was just a month ago. And basically, that's a huge deal, because Krafton, this is the newest game from Krafton. Again, Krafton is the parent company, and underneath it is PUBG, but then also all these other studios. They've been buying other studios, Striking Distance Studio, which created Callisto Protocol. Then there's other projects they're working on as well. And in the world of the stock market, Krafton is on the Korean stock exchange. So just to note that they're not on the US, the American stock exchange, they're on the Korean stock exchange. It's all about expectations. So you could be doing well if you expect. Famously, one time I was tracking Sony, and Sony was expected to lose $2 billion, and they lost like $1.8 billion, and the stock went up, right? So it's not always about gaining or losing money, but sometimes it's just off the expectation. So if you lose less than you're expected, then the stock, will go up higher, and it's not good to have investors expect that you're going to sell 5 million copies and you only sell 2 of the Callisto Protocol. So it's definitely a major fail for them. And then also revenues have been changing for PUBG with PUBG Mobile and a bunch of different things. And then on top of that, just in general, the video game industry hasn't been doing that well. The tech industry in general has been doing a lot of layoffs. Famously, when Elon Musk took over Twitter, they laid off a bunch of employees. Other tech companies kind of probably thought to themselves, you know, there are a lot of duplicative roles at companies, right? Or people that are kind of doing the same thing, or two roles could merge into one. And I pulled up a few different things here. So we go to the main article just to show you guys some other video game companies. So this is Take-Two Interactive, the creators behind Rockstar Games and GTA. So over the last year, their stock is down 32.5%. Over 5 years, they're down 1%. You go to EA Games, obviously everybody knows EA Games. Over the last year, they are down 15.5%. 5 years, they are down 12.5%. Then you have Activision. Their stock doesn't really count because they've been in the process of being purchased by Microsoft. So their stock has been at like the same price for the past year, or at least like, you know, roughly in the same bracket of price. But they're still down 5%. On the year, and let's see, 5 years, they're actually up 3%, but that's really not that much over a 5-year span. So the video game industry is definitely struggling. So there's multiple things going on. During COVID, there was a boom, and then after COVID, a lot of people stopped playing games. A lot of the stocks were inflated because of COVID. Right now that the inflation is happening, people are spending less money, so games aren't doing as well. A lot of, you know, repetitious content is happening, right? A lot of microtransactions. Some people are tired of the way that these games are released and how they're trying to make money. So there, you know, there's so many factors that come into play here. But really, from a corporate perspective, companies start to struggle when inflation is up, because then money is more expensive. They can't borrow money as much to invest in their own company, to make more games, to do all that kind of stuff. And if they're also making less money, they're going to tighten their belt and remove expenses. And the biggest expense for a company is normally office space. Well, it's normally employees, number one, and then usually office space and stuff like that are usually the two biggest expenses for companies like this. So that's it kind of at a macro level. So it is strange that, you know, we are in a weird world of gaming. Of course, there are going to be anomalies. Like Harry Potter just made, I think, like $800 million in sales already for the game, which is insane. But obviously that's like a once in a decade type of game. That's like on the level of Breath of the Wild, where just a really special game. And obviously Harry Potter already carries a huge fan base and stuff like that. So definitely a different situation there for sure. And then we get that back to PUBG though. What's going on with PUBG and what is happening there? Obviously, you guys are aware that PUBG has been struggling for many years now, and a lot of PUBG's revenue comes from PUBG Mobile, and PUBG's been trying to make other games. They're working on many different projects. They just announced that one of the projects they're working on is sort of like an Escape from Tarkov looter extraction game that they're doing, Project Black Budget, I think it's called. You know, a lot of people were saying that this was major news, but I thought I had it somewhere here. I think I closed out of the file. But PUBG had basically posted a timeline of all the games that they're working on. There were so many different games they're working on. This kind of shows a few of them. We have Project Gold Rush, Project Windless, Project Black Budget, Subnautica. There was Project Cowboy that got canceled. And there's probably even more unannounced things that are happening. And actually, PUBG just made or is working on opening a studio in Montreal. So the company is still spending money. And to that extent, they actually have new people that are on the community team, it seems like, that are going to be filling in. But for whatever reason, you know, the people that were laid off were affected by this, whether it's because they're working from home or because of, you know, maybe they're just bringing in people that they're paying less. I mean, I hate to say that, but sometimes that's the reason why companies do stuff like this. But leaving that aside, it doesn't mean that PUBG is about to go bankrupt right now. They still have money. They're still doing things. The game's not dying. They're not ending the game. There's still people that are going to be working on the community team. They still have people that are going to be helping out the partners and stuff like that. But they even mentioned to the partners that there is going to be a lapse of time that people are going to be getting help with issues, with bug reports, with cheating reports and stuff like that. But to me, those are kind of a small drop in the bucket. I mean, it is a big effect. I think that PUBG unfortunately isn't valuing or didn't value what these employees were doing. I know I can speak for Andy that, when I played with him, he was always working on the game. I mean, we'd be, playing late into the night and he would be responding to work messages and community feedback. And he was always working around the clock to do that. And really what I don't think these corporations value is that there is no face for PUBG. There's no way to get information. Really, I feel like sometimes when I announce stuff on YouTube, it's the first time that so many people are hearing it. And that's frustrating to me because, there's not that many people that cover PUBG news anymore. Again, there's CDOME, myself. I'm sure there's other people, but a lot of the bigger content creators like Wacky Jackie and stuff, they're not really covering PUBG news on like a week-to-week or month-to-month basis. And then really, so if you don't follow or didn't follow Andy on Twitter, you really wouldn't hear this stuff. And a lot of times, Andy would play with me during an update and we would be answering all the questions in the chat, and then I would put it on Twitter, and that's where some of the information came from, literally. So if it wasn't for Andy, this stuff wouldn't be even getting out there. And so to me, it's really unfortunate that they don't value that kind of stuff. I mean, so many people in the gaming space know who Andy is from PUBG, and he was really the only way that, there was a connection between the community and the people that work at PUBG, right? Because there's not many people that work at PUBG that are active on social media anymore. And that's where this gets into a whole nother reason why I think this is just like a dark time for PUBG. And I said on stream that it was kind of like a nail in the coffin to me of what's happened at PUBG. So I kind of want to take you guys through a little timeline of that. Again, this is just my opinion. I might be rambling a little bit here, but it's just something that I wanted to share with people on YouTube that didn't hear this during the stream on Thursday and Friday, and why it upset me so much. So again, on a micro level, it upset me because Andy's a friend, and that stinks for him. But of course, Andy will be fine. He's a really smart guy, and I'm sure the other people will be in a similar situation. They all seem like really great people and hard workers. But when I first started playing PUBG and streaming and being a part of the community and growing my stream, it was a really exciting time. Battle Royale was really, really, it was new. It was really exciting. Streaming was exciting. And there was so much action happening with PUBG. PlayerUnknown was doing interviews. They were doing interviews about bringing it to Xbox and PlayStation. There was developers talking about stuff. Fast forward to I start growing my stream and I started talking to different developers. They were going on podcasts. I meet Andy and Hawkins, who is a former social media manager, and other employees that work at PUBG and people that work in the esports scene. I eventually became friends with a person, Brian Corrigan, who left PUBG, but he was the head of PUBG America. And he bought my mug and put it on Twitter. And so many cool things were happening. And I had never seen a company where, I'd played Call of Duty and Halo my whole life. I had never spoke to a developer or a community person. And I already just named, a half a dozen people that I had been able to interact with in PUBG through streaming their game. And I was a very small streamer and still am small in scale compared to, some of the bigger streamers out there. So I'd never gotten that experience anywhere else. And I think a lot of people can relate to that obviously PUBG was like a smaller company compared to these big giants. They were very, boots on the ground with like talking to everybody. And, even that's how Andy got his start famously, is that I think he was on the original PUBG forum so much that they found him and offered him a job because he was, always responding to things on the original forum. So just a really cool environment. And then, I forget the timeline, but then eventually PlayerUnknown leaves famously. He left PUBG, or he started working for a different part of PUBG, and he left. And a lot of people are like, what's, the future of PUBG? Like, what does that mean that he's not really doing anything anymore? He was kind of like the creative director, and then he left. And then I'm sure, some other people slowly started trickling out here and there. And then I remember a few years ago, Brian Corrigan left PUBG a year or two ago. I forget exactly when it was, but he had also transitioned to doing like new state stuff. He left PUBG, Hawkins left PUBG, and immediately then I'm like, oh, this definitely isn't great. I see a lot of people working on New State, which makes sense because that was like their newest game, but definitely you could tell like some of the hype and excitement was going away, and less people were responding to stuff on Twitter and social media about PUBG. PUBG also went, a public in South Korea, so now it's a corporation. Now they're worrying about like their profits on a quarterly basis, how much money they're making, and growing, all that stuff. So something changed then, and then it kind of just like slipped under the radar for me. Suzanne just hit my microphone. So I knew something had changed then. And then slowly but surely, PUBG has just become more and more corporate over time. And then to have this happen where they're laying off the community team, which are the people that are the last face of the game, and they just laid them all off. I mean, there's some community team people, but they're all kind of behind the scenes. I know them and I've talked to some of them, but they're not out there like on social media, interacting with the fans and community and stuff. So to have this happen to me, I'm like, man, now almost all of the contacts that I once had at PUBG are gone. And even a friend, Clover, that I know who does PUBG Esports, was let go as well, which I didn't mention before, which I felt really bad. And I haven't messaged her. I think I did message her, but definitely unfortunate situation because she was such a great caster. And if you follow Esports, you might recognize her. So now, went from all this exciting stuff to now there's only one person that I have a really close connection with that still works at PUBG. And to me, that really stinks. And they're involved with a lot of different things. And, maybe or maybe not, they'll end up watching this video, or maybe not. But, and I understand things become corporate and things change and times change. And, we said in the stream, the only constant is change. I get those things, but it's hard to process that which once was almost like a family affair now is just a completely corporate thing. And also just putting that aside, that PUBG isn't really doing well. I mean, it hasn't been for years, but obviously a lot of us have just had our blinders on. We enjoy the game, or we try to enjoy the game. It's like something that we love, but it's always been problematic over the years. I mean, nothing's perfect, but PUBG is definitely in a different category, right? Like nothing's perfect, no game's perfect, but PUBG is definitely in its own category because it is so far from perfect. There's so many issues with it, but we've always loved it, right? It's always just been a problem child, but we love PUBG. But it's really making me kind of step back and think about where the game is going, really, where my future is in this game, as well as a streamer and someone that has turned a business into it, creating content and stuff like that around PUBG. And I don't think PUBG's dead or dying. I think it will be around for another 5 years at least. I think this game is just so unique and something that will be around forever. But it's definitely to the point now where PUBG's doing their updates. They're doing what they want to do. They have their plan. I'm sure they'll take community feedback still and listen to some of the partners. But overall, it's like and they've kind of been on this trajectory for a while now. I mean, they're doing what they're doing. They're putting out the maps. They're taking them out when they want to. They're doing their things. They have some feedback and some things they change, but they already have, things planned out. Like at least last year, the whole last year was planned out ahead of time, right? And they already have a bunch of stuff planned out for this year that, they'll be announcing, I'm sure at some point. We'll hear eventually some of their plans for the year. And PUBG is just a well-oiled machine now, and it has less of that character, which we all once loved, I feel like, and for me became one of the reasons why I put so many of my eggs in the PUBG basket, which again, I always knew was very risky. Doing this profession is very risky. Streaming, making YouTube content is an extremely volatile and risky thing to do. So, I obviously already aware of that. But for me, it's definitely a big wake-up call, and I think for a lot of people as well, it's just a big wake-up call that this is happening, and that the times of things going up have changed, and now things are plateauing and kind of shaky right now. But in terms of like console revenue and stuff like that, actually PUBG's console revenue went up. So I had actually posted, I was actually one of the first people to ever post this data in English about the console revenue, how little it was out of the grand scheme of things, especially in North America. But here's just some data from their recent filings. So in 2020, if you look at their revenue as 100%, right? 100% of the pie, what is it broken down into? So mobile was 80% of their revenue in 2020, and obviously most of this is PUBG related, right? Those are the games that make the most money is PUBG. Really the only games that make money. They, PUBG and Krafton do make some other games, but they just don't make that much money. So mobile's 80%, 80.3. This is 2020, by the way. PC is 15.9%. Console was 1.8%. And other was 2.1. Console was the lowest thing, even under other. Then in 2022, it actually changed kind of dramatically here. So mobile went down to 67% from 80%. PC went up to 25% from 15%. Console went up to 5.6, and now other is 1.7. So now console is actually above. So console and PC making up more revenue. But a lot of this is also because PUBG Mobile is actually losing revenue. So some of the revenue stuff, the percentages are changing because mobile lost some of the revenue. And then I haven't really been following this, but that closely. But PUBG Mobile was banned in India. Then they created PUBG India, so it could be released in India or like Battlegrounds India. And then it got banned again, and I think they're working on getting it re-released. And just so you guys have the information, if you want to know it, PUBG Mobile wasn't actually even created by PUBG. They paid Tencent, which is a Chinese company, to make PUBG Mobile. And Tencent does a lot of games, mobile games. I think they did some of the Call of Duty games as well. They do a lot of companies' mobile games. And India has some issues with China, so they outlawed anything that was made from a Chinese company, hence why PUBG Mobile got taken out. Then PUBG redid it under Battlegrounds India. They made it, and then also that's another reason why PUBG decided to make New State on their own, so they didn't have to pay royalties to Tencent, and that they completely owned New State, which is why they made that game. But I don't think New State does as well as PUBG Mobile. It's still like the powerhouse original game that just blew up there. And PUBG Mobile, for people that don't know, is sort of like Fortnite in Asia and the Middle East. It just became so popular there and was the first one that was so popular that as a first mover, it really took over those areas that dominated that space. So that's kind of the whole picture there. PUBG, still a giant company. They're making other games, but there's their personal stock, Krafton stock on the Korean Stock Exchange is down 60%. I forgot to share that earlier. So, eventually they need to start making some successes, or their company is really going to struggle over time, but they still have a lot of residual money from everything they made through PUBG and will continue to make through PUBG Mobile and PUBG PC and console. But, it's just a weird situation to be in. And again, my thoughts with everybody that got let go, and definitely interested to hear what you guys think. I just wanted to share some of that information because of all the stuff I have in my head. So sorry if this video was long, but we'll see what the future has for PUBG, and we'll see if I might end up re-recording this in a more concise manner. Yeah, so my thoughts with everybody affected. And hopefully PUBG will turn things around. Obviously, I'll still continue to play PUBG. I love the game, but I just don't know if I might be taking some eggs out of this basket and putting them somewhere else now, because it just doesn't seem safe to have all your eggs in the PUBG basket. So definitely interested to hear what you guys think down in the comments below. Thank you for listening if you made it this far. And as always, I'm Blitz5, and peace out.